I had like a very bespoke need of like, I want this particular thing for myself and I want it to work exactly this way. And I never would have taken the time to write that because it would have been a many, many week project and there's no financial reward at the end of the tunnel. But because I was able to do it with Claude in the span of about 8 hours and I wrote basically no lines of code myself and I was able to launch this thing, like it's pretty cool.
Welcome to SaaS That App, building B2B web applications, the podcast where we share real-world stories, practical advice, and tech insights for those building or thinking about starting a tech-enabled business. I am your co-host, Aaron Marchbanks.
And I'm Justin Edwards. Each week we bring you the stories, strategies, and insights you need to build your SaaS or tech-enabled business smarter, not harder. Let's dive right in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to SaaS That App. We're having fun with some new interface stuff in Riverside today as we are contemplating a live stream of our podcast in the near future where we're tinkering with some ideas in addition to the technical stuff. And so getting to sort through some of that, I'm finding fun multifunctional buttons. And so I've been sharing that with Justin, who has always is sitting across the table from me and has won a most recent battle against the I don't have internet gremlins.
Yeah. Struggle is real. And we just up and pay for 2 internet connections in our house because it's so financially impactful if our internet goes down. And even with my 2 redundant connections, I was still struggling with having a sufficient connection to do things like have a video call and record a podcast. But we have arrived at the solution and now everything is groovy and I have more megabytes than 2 and evil is punished. It's been wonderful.
I loved the speed test readout there. I'm actually a little jealous because you're getting better throughput than I am.
What's that? We have better internet in Mexico? Who'd have thunk it?
Right? Well, today we are going to actually reach back to some of our prognostications that we made earlier this year and also just some things that have come up over the course of relatively recent episodes. And that, of course, has to do with AI in general, but much more specifically how people are going to be able to use it and have used it to kind of fulfill some goals, whether they are personal goals or hobbies or side projects or just out and out going after some larger 800-pound gorillas in the workplace, and how that has become easier and is by the day becoming even more easier. More easier? Yeah, sure. We'll go with that. More easier, Justin. That's where I'm at on Friday.
It's double plus more easy.
So how we are going to attack this is actually something that Justin has put together in his time as he is working on his, I don't know how many numbered languages now that you are working on or have under your belt.
Just the 3rd. It's not that impressive. To our European listeners, it's not impressive at all. Only 3. I'm only like halfway through number 3. So calm down.
All right. So Justin has put together an application to help him with some very specific elements of German. And so Justin, give us the quick 30,000 foot view of what this guy's all about.
Yeah. So I'll do a really quick aside in some grammar German learner stuff. So German has these things called cases, and we actually have them in English too, but they're pretty much invisible. So you end up with this confluence where German has 3 different genders for its nouns, masculine, feminine, and neuter. And then there are 4 or 5 cases. You primarily use 3. And so the cases are the nominative, which is I am, pretty straightforward. And of course, depending on what the noun is in German, that could be, if we say the dog, for instance, the in that sentence could be 3 different articles for introducing it because there are 3 different genders. So it could be der, das, or die. And that's the straightforward case. Then there's the direct object case. So if you're using the dog chases the ball in that sense, because it's the direct object, gets a different word of the, which again, the ball may have a different gender than the dog. And then because it's in the direct object case, it gets a different version of the word the with a different ending. I probably should have picked the German nouns that I had off the top of my head. But for masculine, so if we wanted to say the cheese, der Käse, in the accusative case, it'd be den Käse. And so it's not der, it's not das, it's not die, it's den. And then there's another case, which is the dative, and the same thing happens where you have 3 different genders and then 3 different ways to conjugate them. And then there's also plurals that enter into it and make things even muckier. So that is the complicated German language and the 50 different versions of the word the you have to learn and when specifically to use them. And to maximize confusion, sometimes they are the same, but they flip. So like if you're talking about a feminine noun in the dative case, you use der, which is word for word pronounced and spelled identical to the masculine in the nominative case for maximum confusion. However, if you're a native German speaker, it all makes perfect sense. So that's basically the thing I was trying to wrap my head around, is that I suck at these. And there wasn't a way for me to just practice them. Or if there was, I didn't find it. And so I was like, I just want like flashcards for just these cases. And yeah, I couldn't find something that did what I wanted, where it's just like, I don't want to mess with anything else. I just want to drill, give me the case, give me the plurality, and then give me if it's definite or indefinite. So the man or a man. I want the noun, the case, the number, and then leave me alone and have me type it so I can basically use recall and not recognition, which is part of an important thing from learning science, to type it. And so I actually have to sit there and type. I'm trying to bring in a bunch of different components that augment learning to drill this. And I wanted to drill it in a very specific way, and I could not find something that did that. Enter Claude. I sat down with Claude. I dictated. I hit my dictate button. I'm like, yeah, Claude, German cases are really hard. And I had this idea for this website. And like, it doesn't really need to be anything but a front end. And we were off to the races. So yeah, that's at schleifer.justinedwards.me. If anyone would like to use it to practice their German cases, I put it out there because it's free to do. But that's Schleifer and the backstory of how it came to be.
So the obvious question that everyone is probably going to be asking is, I don't really want to build this stuff. Why can't I find something that's out there already? And I know that there are a number of language applications, but they're usually very broad. The obvious one here for me, because actually my daughter uses it while she's working on her French stuff, is Duolingo. So why not something that's already in the market, that already presumably handles learning languages and things like that, and just sign up and get into whatever groove it has?
I mean, I think the Duolingo is fine. I don't like Duolingo, but that's more of a personal preference thing than anything else. This specifically was, I'm taking German courses. I'm doing writing in German. I'm talking to Daniel in German. So I have kind of my learning plan for German, and I'm working it. And I just found this one particular thing that I needed to drill. I didn't find a tool that was available for me to drill this particular thing. And so I think those things all have their place, but I'm skeptical, I suppose, that you're going to sit down with Duolingo and at the end of completing their material or whatever, end up with the ability to speak German. Maybe there's people who have that story. I don't know. I'm skeptical because of how they present learning. They do a lot of recognition versus recall, which has some, it's not useless, but recall is better than recognition in terms of actually learning and knowing something. They have animations, and like, I realize that they're trying to be sticky and they have like this streak thing. And they're just trying to keep people using the app and making it fun and all that. But like, I'm a really soulless, boring person, and I just want to drill my German cases. So every time I do something, back when I was a Duolingo user, I'd click something and there's this giant pop-up and a unicorn goes flying by with a rainbow. And I'm like, oh, guys, you got to, these animations are just slowing me down. I should be reviewing my next German case at this point. And just because we mentioned Duolingo, I want to mention the one that I actually like, which is Link, Lingq. And that's much more of a reading companion or a YouTube video watching companion. So you plug in your foreign language content into it, and then it provides you a transcript, and you can click on the words that you don't know. And then all the words that you don't know go into a bank, and you can repeat them and work on them. And it kind of is like a vocabulary builder. But the whole thing is designed to get you through a lot of comprehensible input. And then with that comprehensible input, you end up being able to do things like speak fluently or fluidly, because you hear the patterns and you hear what people say. So it's a good way to go about language learning. So anyway, I wanted to mention Link because I like them better than Duolingo, and Duolingo gets brought up all the time. But I think more to like the point is like, I had like a very bespoke need of like, I want this particular thing for myself and I want it to work exactly this way. And I never would have taken the time to write that because it would have been a many, many week project and there's no financial reward at the end of the tunnel. But because I was able to do it with Claude in the span of about 8 hours, and I wrote basically no lines of code myself, and I was able to launch this thing, like it's pretty cool.
Real quick, this episode is brought to you by Delta Systems, which is what Aaron and I do when we're not talking through microphones to you, the people of the internet. We've got a really, really great software team here, and we love to work with cool people on cool projects. So if that sounds like you and you've got a problem or you're in some kind of a jam, go to deltasystems.com, grab a time with us. We can beat up on your problem together, and if there's a fit there, amazing, we'll help you out. So deltasystems.com, grab an appointment, and hey, maybe we can work together.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question is, how long did it take? And so you answered that specifically, but dealing with Claude, talk a little bit about your experience over those roughly 8 hours to build this thing. Did you find that it was very much just a natural language conversation that you were having with Claude? Was there just an initial thing and then tons of tuning and tweaks and stuff? Was it like 2 hours of here's the big picture and then 4 or 5 hours or whatever of, no, you still don't have it right. No, you still don't have it right. Okay, adjust this, add that. Talk about your experience there dealing with Claude to build this thing.
Yeah, I mean, how I iterate with Claude when I do my day job is I let Claude do his thing. I put up guardrails that I think are important ahead of time, and then I just talk to him about what I want to see, and then I test. So I want something, I want to work like flashcards, I want to blah, blah, blah. One of the things that came up is like, I had something that worked, it was doing what I wanted to, I was using it, and then I identified a frustration, which is that sometimes I would just misread whether it was going to be a man or the man, and I would give it the correct a man answer, and it would error at me, and I would lose my point and have to revisit that word, which is like, kind of harsh because I was actually correct. It's just like a trivial mistake. So I added a feature where it just shakes the screen and is like, hey, you're right, but you got the, whether it's direct or indirect wrong. And my version now, if you put in the man, when it was asking for a man, it just shakes you and is like, hey, you got to go correct this. But it doesn't go down as a failure as if you misspelled it or got the case wrong or something like that. And that was one where I saw the issue. I hopped on Claude. I hit the dictate button. I said, hey, like when I get it most of the way right, like, so if I'm off by a letter, there's a thing called Levenstein distance, which is a way to calculate basically the distance between two words. I won't nerd out on that. But I was like, look, if the Levenstein distance is really close, then I don't want to error people. Let's just tell them that they made a mistake, but accept it. And then I was like, but if it's off by one because they got the ending wrong, that's exactly what we're drilling. So even if the Levenstein distance is off by one, if the ending is wrong, it's no good. Or this whole thing I just did with like, if they give you the right answer, but the wrong definite or indefinite article, just give me a little shake or whatever. So the process of building was basically talking to Claude, reviewing, identifying things I liked and didn't like, going back. One of the things that was really cool about working with Claude and ChatGPT on this is that I went to ChatGPT and I asked for 1,000 of the most common German nouns. And then I went to Claude and asked for 1,000 of the most common German nouns. And I put together a format that Schleifer needed to know all the plurals, pluralizations and all that. And I piped that back into an AI bot with my master list, which is almost 2,000 nouns. And I said, hey, generate all the different cases and everything for this. And it does it perfectly. Then I piped that into Schleifer. And I said, hey, here's the format of everything we're going to be able to drill. Let's build the tool to do the drilling. Yes, I mean, this is a 100% AI-based project. I also, using the different AI tools, was like, hey, I want to have resources available for people. Like, there are some general rules for German nouns to help you. And when someone makes a mistake, if the mistake that they made falls in the category of having one of these rules, I want you to flag that rule for them and tell them about it. So an example is a very common German noun ending is ung. And it usually means like a general concept or an idea. I think it's from Latin. Don't quote me on that. But basically, if the verb ends in ung, it's almost always feminine. There may be an exception, but I don't know it. UNG words are always feminine. So on Schleifer, if you mess up a word that ends in UNG, it pops up and says, hey, it's a UNG word, man. It's always feminine. But I don't know that stuff. I don't speak German. I'm learning German, right? So
right.
I asked the AI bot, like, hey, there are kind of a bunch of general rules for this. Would you just enumerate all of those? And I passed it off to Schleifer and I said, hey, we need like a rules area. And then when the person, I need you to go through that same list that we had. And if this rule applies to that noun, then go ahead and just like tag the rule in. So I'm just being creative over here. I don't actually know the material at all. And I'm not doing any of the programming. I don't know the nouns. I'm just trying to build something to drill this. So it was kind of a otherworldly, strange experience where I felt like I knew so many things that I don't actually know. I owned all this competence that isn't mine. But it was pretty cool just to be in the creative spot where I'm just talking at a microphone into Claude and he's building this idea that I had and we launched it, right?
And so this was truly no code. You didn't touch code?
I definitely didn't open an IDE. If I did, I might have used Emacs to like edit a config file or something. I didn't want to make the claim that I didn't touch any code, but if I touched any code, it was a line or two. I haven't actually seen a lot of the source code for this because it's a low stakes project with I don't just vibe code and push stuff into production for projects that matter. But for this, it's like, well, if somebody hacks your German language progress, that one's on me and I'll apologize.
And I know that you've worked with Claude quite a lot, and there are people who don't work with it very much or maybe are not real great at working with it. Would you say that being an engineer helps you deal with Claude, or does that really even matter anymore?
I just want to get the lawyer answer, which is it depends, which there's a little more nuance there. In general, I don't think it matters that much for this kind of application. I do want to put an asterisk on that where I think it does matter in a lot of cases. So I think all of the getting the thing online would have been hard for someone who doesn't have my skill set and background. Having the idea for an app that you could use and getting it launched, they're not the same skill set. And I think AI would have a little bit of a harder time navigating you through that second piece. On the other hand, maybe it wouldn't have a hard time and I just have opinions. And so we push into the stuff that I want to use. But it's actually one of the things I think is really cool is if you have a little idea for a tool that you would use that maybe isn't generally applicable in the span of a few hours on a weekend, you could probably, working with Claude as a non-engineer, come up with something that would do most of what you wanted, which I think is incredibly empowering.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It does make me concerned for some of my favorite micro-SaaSes that do like one tiny thing that we pay $10 a month for, because I think a lot of people are going to be able to just roll their own on that. So one thing with Schleifer is it now uses Supabase because sometimes I was on the road and I wanted to do it on my phone. And then I ended up with like a desktop profile that was locked in my desktop browser and then a phone profile that was locked in my phone. And that was annoying because I'm the same person and I'm working on all the same nouns. So like all of my history and learning should be together. And so I was like, but I don't want to pay for a server. So there's a thing called Supabase now, which I have in general been very skeptical of for business applications and remain so. But for something like this, it basically got me authentication for free. I tapped in Resend to handle my email sending, which is a free service also, which is awesome. We should put links to all the Resend and all that in there because they're just really cool free services. So Resend sends my email so I can do password resets. Supabase provides a free database for me and it handles my authentication. So $0 a month for Supabase. That's persistence of cloud storage of your data and authentication, and then resend free SMTP service. I had a domain already, so my subdomain was free. The front end is hosted on Cloudflare Pages, also free. I have a Cloudflare worker that does some of the interfacing with the Supabase thing, also free. So a Cloud Code subscription was the cost of building this and then some of my time.
That's awesome. So, I mean, obviously where we're going with this is, and we've talked about this in other episodes with other technologies as well, but we're removing moats. Basically, you're getting obstacles out of the way for people who have something that's niche, but also those who are thinking larger scale, people who are trying to build out like a particular feature for an existing piece of software, something that is still relatively small, or like you talked about, kind of going after a large organization or a piece of software that already exists that you're paying licensing fees for, and you're just going to roll your own. And I think I already know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you so you can expound on it. But if we are now removing the moat, if not completely, at least, access to the drawbridge of programming, what becomes the moat now?
I don't know if anyone has the right answer to that question. I lean into relationships and trust, and the relationships, I think, is the answer. So if we get to the point where technology is ubiquitous and anybody can bang their head on a keyboard and make a blah, we don't actually have the bandwidth to run 500,000 micro-SaaSes, most of us. So we want to do business with people we like and trust and who we think are worthwhile. And I know a lot of people have been throwing around kind of the analogy. It's like people have also always been able to work on their own cars, but they choose not to do it. And I agree with about half of that, but I think it's a little different. I think it's a little bit of an unfair comparison. But I think how you treat your customers and relationships and having people just be confident in you. So like with Strive, I think that's basically what our positioning is. It's just like, we're doing this because we want to help people. Like we made some money already and like we wanted to work on something. It needs to pay for itself. It would be great if it paid us a little bit of something. But basically, there's a bunch of organizations who need the software that does this thing, and they don't really individually have the money to do that. So we are basically kind of crowdsourcing or pooling because we can be good enough for all these different organizations who all have a little bit of money. And so it's how the free market works, right? But we're essentially pooling all the resources that all these tiny different disparate organizations have into one application that is robust enough to do what they need. But all of those centers with AI today, a cloud subscription and enough time could probably do a lot of their reporting needs relatively well without something like us. But we're also staying on top of what's changing with the laws and changing with funding sources. And we are security experts and we are cloud experts. And some of those pieces that really enter in when the stakes are high. Like anybody who wants to vibe code a language learning app and stick it on the internet for anyone to use, have at it. My D&D app is basically the same thing. And it's like, well, yeah, if someone breaks into your character sheet, a million apologies, but like you're going to be okay. And I have backups and things like that. But like now we're talking about survivor data and people's stories about horrible things that have happened to them and criminal investigations and evidence. And this stuff is high stakes. And I think it means a lot to the organizations we work with that it's like, oh, those guys are security experts and those guys care about it a lot. And if I was vibe coding my thing with Claude, I might not be able to sleep at night because I don't really understand what's going on with security and those kinds of things. So
yeah, and I think that points to the issue of why businesses or business owners or engineers fear losing jobs, or business owners trying to more readily leverage AI in place of a developer. The answer to that question is still fundamentally the same. You still need someone with understanding, with knowledge of all the different compliance issues that you're going to be up against. Like I said, you're not going to vibe code something and throw it up into production. At least we're not for our clients and the type of work that we're going to do. I suppose I can name a couple of times when I've heard that and cringed. But why you need to hire developers hasn't necessarily changed. You still have to have somebody to babysit the AI. You still have to have somebody that knows what they're doing beyond inputs and outputs to know if what happens in the middle is happening correctly and well, is being monitored, is actually performing what it is supposed to be doing, and it's not just kind of pulling the wool over your eyes. So I still, through all of this, have never felt like, whoa, developers are just totally going to be out of jobs. There are people saying that, and I think that they're just either wildly optimistic or horribly uninformed. I don't think we're at that point, but I do think it has opened up the floodgates potentially for entry into markets, small focused niche businesses, and certainly hobbyists or people who want to get this out there. So just to kind of bring this all back to Schleifer a little bit, but in general business and the processes that go into it, you have this utility, you have built others, your D&D application. Obviously, we have a lot of people on the team that do their own kind of side gigs and side hustles and things like that. So my question is, where do you think, or in your opinion, where is that line between this is cool, it's hobby, it's vibe coded, it's low risk, I can do it all in AI and not really sweat too much about getting in there and seeing if it's being done right, and this needs to be very solid, very stable, it needs human eyes and processes on it? I know that moves, but roughly, where do you think that line is now?
I probably draw it earlier than a lot of people, but for me, it's PII. If I can identify who you are and things about you using this thing, then I don't want it 100% vibe coded. So first name, last name, maybe I'm still okay. First name, last name, email. If we had phone number and street address, now I'm like, yeah, I don't want that anymore. So I probably draw it a lot earlier than other people. I don't describe myself as an AI skeptic, but I think that AI is being a foot gun for a lot of people, and we're continuing to see breaches and horrible stuff happen. And I think it's because everyone thought AI was the silver bullet and then promptly went out and shot themselves in the foot with it. And it's a really, really powerful tool. And all of our team members use it. We're using it all day, every day. Like, I don't want to present like we're not. Like, it's an incredibly useful tool, but we also do human review on all of our code. And the things in my life that don't have human review are things where I don't know the name. I have email of anybody who's a Schleifer user, and then I could basically see where they're at with their German case progress. That's it. And so if someone hacked that database and it was breached, all right, that's kind of fine. On the other hand, there was just this horrible leak. It's going back a couple of months now where I think it was related to cannabis stores in Spain, but there was just a publicly accessible endpoint with people's passports. You could just go to it and here's, just a few, any passport that you want to pull. There was a bunch of very sensitive information and there's thousands and thousands of them just hanging out there on the open internet, sitting behind a URL. And I don't know if that was AI derived, but Claude does a lot of dumb stuff like that a lot of the time. And you do want somebody spotting, maybe, I don't know if we use a weightlifting. You want someone spotting Claude because he will do really, really dumb things. And everyone on our team is constantly like, oh, you don't believe what Claude tried to do. And we share stories with each other about the dumb way that Claude tried to solve a problem. And not that I'm like knocking Claude, I'm not, but it very frequently gets things wrong and has to be controlled and managed. And I don't see that going away, but maybe I just lack vision. Time will tell.
And on the other side of that, too, of course, if you had leveraged Claude to build such a thing that had that type of opening, on the other side, there are a lot of people who use Claude for reporting purposes or scraping purposes or things along those lines. And it knows, even if the general user might not, that there are URLs that are available. And it has a tendency sometimes to dig into that. And, that gets reported sometimes as a compromise, but it's less a compromise and more of a discovery of something that was already publicly available that the general public just didn't know how to get to. And so you've also got to be careful when you're doing the hunting out there via your AI and you're pulling in sources or you're trying to extract data or you're looking for certain things. We've seen that very recently, as a matter of fact. When Claude goes on the hunt, sometimes it brings back stuff that surprises you.
Well, if your security is only through obscurity, then you don't have security. Anonymity is a good first pass if it's not to be conflated with security. So,
sure. So wrap us up with something encouraging, Justin. What do we need to tell everybody out there just in terms of where we're at with AI related to these niche things, these feature things, or these very focused, I just need it to do this. I want something to play with. I want something to experiment or experience. What's a good message for everybody?
Geez, normally you come to me for black coffee and doom and gloom. I'm not used to having to be positive. We'll try to.
That's why I'm putting you on the spot. Come on.
This is an area of growth for me, so I'm going to lean into it. I'm going to embrace the suck. So I'm incredibly bullish, excited. I'm giddy, if you will, about how anybody who has a modicum of interest and a modicum of talent can step in using one of these tools and just create something. And some of the things that they create may be dumb things that I've created, like drilling German cases and having a character sheet for my weird version of D&D that I play. But other things are not as trivial and won't be as commercially worthless, if you will. And I just see 1,000 people accessing entrepreneurship or 1 million people accessing entrepreneurship who couldn't before. You can bang your head on a keyboard and with a little bit of insight and a little bit of learning produce a valuable SaaS, or even if it's a one-time service, an app that you sell or a thing you put in the app store, any of that. Like, the barrier between having the idea and wanting to make a business go and having the finance, the capital, the investment, the talent, the know-how to kind of bring that to light has just gotten the volume turned down on it so much. And we're going to see so many businesses fail, and that's going to be great, but we're also going to see a lot of businesses come through and not fail and need to scale and need to grow. And I feel like we took the burner on the economy and we're just cranking it up because the amount of these tiny businesses that are going to be able to come to light now with where we're at is just overwhelming. And I'm so excited about it. I'm so excited about everybody's entrepreneurial journey. People who never thought themselves as entrepreneurs or would be entrepreneurs are now going to find themselves with an app that's making a few $1,000s a month, being like, what the hell do I do? And eventually my phone will ring because they will need to scale it or something will happen with security or whatever. I'm happy about that too. The rising tide lifts all boats, right? But
that's right.
I think that it's so cool. And I also think that if you just have a bespoke idea, like you've always wanted one very particular thing to work exactly the way that you wanted it to work, and that's just not been available to you because you're in the free market minority of being the only one of 5 people who want something that's exactly like that way, so there's no business around it, go build it for yourself and put it on the internet for free for the 5 other people who want that. And like, was that warm enough?
That's great. Yes.
I'm actually super excited about this. So I think it's fabulous.
Yeah. And then don't be surprised if it's more than 5 people. who have that same need and just didn't know where to go or who to talk to. And now you're building community. And I love that. That gets me excited too, is building community around some of these things where you think you're on an island by yourself, but hey, no, you just had enough time on your hands to go put together the idea. And somebody else was like, I love the way you solved this. I'm totally on board with this thing.
It's also just like, don't be a jerk. Lesson for business. No matter how cool you are, just don't be a jerk.
That's a life lesson. Now we're stepping way out of the bounds of SaaS.
I had someone approach me with a business opportunity recently, and he's like, I think you'd be a great fit and all this. I'm like, well, why? He's like, you're not an asshole. That's my only qualification. I may not be a good fit for you, but all right, I'm in. So
love that. I love the bar.
I love you, Aaron. You're the best.
Oh, you too, buddy. This is always a blast. And I love getting to just chat about goofy stuff. And this, I won't couch necessarily as goofy stuff, but it's just fun. The industry is getting fun again because of this sort of thing. And conversations even that we have internally, with the team, it's just a blast. And I think we mentioned on the show, but we have these lunch and learns once a week and people are bringing their own ideas in. And it's just so fun. I think everybody's got a lot of buy-in on that. And they're just going in all different directions. It's so cool to see.
Yeah, the amount of stuff that I learned from my team is bamboozling and humbling. I'm just like, man, these guys are doing some cool stuff. I'm not doing anything cool like this. I got to up my game. I think everyone feels that pressure. Like, man, these guys are doing cool stuff. I got to find some cool stuff to do too.
Yeah, love that. Well, thanks as always to everyone out there in listener land. This has been Aaron and Justin, just chatting about the adventures of getting into AI on your own.
Hey, Aaron, next time we do a show, like in the future, I want to hear about the cool thing that you built over a weekend.
You bet.
I'm challenging you. Build something cool.
I would say I'm finally going to have some weekends because my community theater show has run its course. And now I'm actually thinking to myself, is there something in the sphere of community theater that I can maybe put together? So I'm going to noodle on that a little bit.
Absolutely do it. Thanks to Superbase and Resound and Cloudflare for unofficially and against their will sponsoring this episode. We appreciate you. Thanks for hosting my stuff for free, boys.
Fantastic. Thanks again, all. And we will catch you next time on SaaS That App.
Cheers.
Thanks for cruising along with us on SaaS That App. We hope you grabbed some insights that were inspiring, actionable, or at least entertaining.
If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review.
Until next time, keep building, keep growing, and keep those apps sassy.